Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of Rift Talks. As usual, I'm your host, Dave Troop, and we got a good one for you guys this week. Worlds has started. So, going to be mostly focusing on that. We're going to start it off with a Teamfight Breakdown as usual, and we've taken one from the game today, actually, from one of the series today. So, be good to get into that and take a look. Then we'll kind of take a look at everything that we've seen so far in Worlds. The meta, the play-in groups, how all that went, how all that shook down. Um, you know, do a little bit of analysis on the groups, the couple of series that happened today for the knockout stage, as well as the two series that we have coming up tomorrow morning, bright and early, 7 a.m. Eastern time, 4 a.m. Pacific, that are going to determine the last two teams that make it through to the actual main event. And then from there, I'll take a look at a couple of discussions that are going on in the community right now. And as usual, we will wrap it up with a brief TFT segment. They've kind of announced some tentative changes for patch 9.2. So excited to get into that and take a look at how the game will evolve next week once that patch goes live. But for now, we're going to start off with this team fight breakdown. And it's actually between the first series today between Damwon and Low-Key. Now, this was a pretty interesting series. So we'll just pause it right away and kind of set this up for you guys. So the thing to note is that, this is actually the one game that Damwon loses. The only game that they've lost in this entire tournament so far. And a lot of things here were kind of weird, but despite this is actually a team fight Damwon wins. And I think it kind of shows you the power of this team and, kind of can give you a small blueprint on how you might want to beat them for teams later on in the event. So the first thing to note is that Celebrity on the Tristana is gigantic. So this game started out really weird. There was a lane swap, and Celebrity basically got to take all three outer turrets, got all of the plates. You guys can't see it right now, but he's got 5 items at 25 minutes. He already has the Rapid Fire, the Phantom Dancer, the Infinity Edge, the Guardian Angel, and his boots. That's an insane lead. The other thing that you guys might find strange is actually something that I brought up last week, kind of maybe saying that we'd see this from Fnatic, but apparently we're seeing it from Damwon too. The Garen Yuumi bot lane. And this kind of actually comes back to bite them because although it worked, it in the lane swap scenario, they didn't have the same amount of pressure. And then in the part of the game, especially like right after this team fight where they were doing well, they weren't able to push down towers. They weren't really able to use that. They had to wipe 3 or 4 members to actually safely attack towers. But Naguri on the Vladimir is stupid fed as well. He's got Death Cap, he's got the Spellbinder, he's got his Fiendish Codex, he's got his ring. Like, this guy is just all set up. He had a really, really greedy build, and even though they kind of kept him down, so this was probably one of the games where we've seen Naguri actually be the furthest behind that he's ever been. And on this Vladimir, he is still an absolute animal. So I think the takeaway that we're going to see from this is ban Vlad against Damwon, because otherwise you're going to have a really bad time. So let's set this up. You see Low-Key, they're kind of, they're trying to siege. They're trying to take out Damwon's turret, but all of Damwon is collapsing. And, right now they have full control of the map, but you're gonna basically watch them have to run away because at this point, despite how fed Celebrity is on the Tristana, they're only 800 gold in the lead. They've lost a couple of skirmishes. They know how strong this Damwon team is. So let's roll it for a little bit here, and we can kind of see how things get set up. So all of Low-Key's running away, and stop right there. Maybe back it up a little bit. So basically how this fight starts is Low-Key is running away. And you see Canyon there on the Kiana, and he's chasing along with Showmaker on the Akali. And what you're gonna notice is gonna happen is that Hani, who's on the Ornn, which is a kind of a weird pick. We haven't really seen much Ornn. He did get a small buff, but I don't think he's very good. He's their main tank, and he's gonna get split up from everybody on Low-Key who actually does damage. So roll it a little bit here, and Kiana's instantly gonna blow up DNK's Gragas. Like, it's just gonna be an instant death. You see them all kind of running away, and they funnel through this little area, which is a big no-no. You don't do this against Kiana. And you see there, the ult comes through, and DNK gets blown up instantaneously. Now, from here, Artifact actually does a really good job staying alive on this Twisted Fate because Shoemaker's Akali is really, really good, but he is able to get the gold card off just in time to kind of buy him some time and get away. And at the very top of your screen, you kind of see Naguri there and Hani are kind of in their own world. Meanwhile, everybody else is, closer to that blue buff area. The Shen ult comes through, and this is actually going to save Celebrity for the time being, because instantaneously Nuclear has to back off. And this is the problem. Nuclear on the Garen, if he's not right on top of somebody, he's just basically useless. He's going to get taken out instantaneously. And things right now look actually pretty good for low key. But the problem is that Naguri's full HP. Canyon flashes over the wall, picks up the second kill for himself, using that Q on the Kiana to take out Artifact. And now it's a 3v4. These players are going to run away. Kiana, though, is taken out, and that's where Celebrity's damage comes in huge. Like you can see, just basically 2 shots, or even from the 25-30% health that she has. And this is where Loki gets a little bit overconfident. They think, hey guys, we can win this. It's a 3v3 now. Let's turn on them. But unfortunately, Naguri, way too big, uses his pool to avoid all the damage. And now the 3v2, and Celebrity's still really confident. Like, look, he's moving forward, even though he's undermanned and he's basically by himself. This is a mistake. He should have run away 100%, not respecting the damage that Akali can put out, and not respecting the Vladimir. Naguri's Vladimir, you see how much damage he does there. Just from half health, Tristana's dead. The Guardian Angel pops. Hani tries to run away, isn't able to. And the GA, even though it pops between Akali and Naguri on the Vladimir, he's not going anywhere. So honestly, these two champions, like what we've seen from Damwon, is exactly what the scouting report kind of told us we were going to see heading into this tournament. Nuclear and Beryl, the bottom lane, is really not very good. They're okay, but they're not the strong point of this team. The focal point of this team is Naguri, Showmaker, and how strong those two are in the solo lanes. And essentially, like, these are two of their best champions. Akali and Vladimir are their bread and butter. And for all intents and purposes, this game should have been a 25-minute stomp. Like, Celebrity was so far ahead, this should never have been a match. But time and time again, Naguri and Showmaker were able to use these champions to get a couple kills, win these small skirmishes. And then here, like, there was a really good chance at this point that this game was just going to completely break down and Damwon was going to win. Really good job by Loki, honestly, in the rest of this game to kind of close it out. It was bloody. It was not very pretty, but they were able to get the win. If they hadn't won this game, the other two games would have been really, really bad, even worse than they were. You can tell they had a little bit of confidence coming in on this. But the lane swap isn't something that we really see very often in this meta. And it worked to great effect here for Loki. Like, they were able to get the lead. Celebrity was able to do a lot of damage, but ultimately, Naguri on that Vladimir does way too much damage. Just way too much damage. You have to ban that champion against Damwon if you want any chance of winning. He played a lot of other champions too. Like, his Ryze is really good. His Jace was fantastic. But I think his Vladimir, based on what I've seen so far, is probably the scariest thing, just because of how hard Vladimir scales. Ryze is kind of in that same boat as well. Where even if you keep him down early, I mean, he takes Kleptomancy against everything. He doesn't, like, it doesn't bother him if it's a bad matchup in lane. He still takes Kleptomancy and wins the lane matchup despite having no combat stats and gets the extra gold from Kleptomancy. It literally makes no sense. So unless he runs into some other really, really strong top laners, he might be able to hard carry these guys to like a top 8, if not a top 4 in the tournament. I know Jat has them as one of the 4 best teams in the tournament. And when you see the power of these solo lanes, you can understand why. The only thing is that, going back to the LCK play where they were playing in that series to get into Worlds as a 5-game series, the thing that hamstrung them there and the reason it went to the full 5 games is their bot lane would lose so hard that there was nothing the rest of the team could do. And I think that, if they are put into a group like Group D, like, all the priority is going to have to be put on Double Lift for Team Liquid to kind of destroy them and make it out. Because otherwise, like, as you saw there, it doesn't matter how out of control the game state is. Damwon had no turrets. Meanwhile, Loki had all the turrets taken, and Celebrity had all the turret plates and all this extra gold. And, Naguri had the worst start possible. Like, he had no CS. He was getting zoned out. He was getting killed. It was terrible. And he was still able to do that at the 25-minute mark. Like, there's just no stopping that guy. So the lessons from that team fight: ban Vlad and ban Akali if you want to beat these guys. It sucks because you have to leave other power picks open, but I think those two are just too good on that combination. They know how to use those champions too well. Canyon's Kiana was also pretty impressive. It's more of a Showmaker champion than a Canyon champion, which is why I think they expected it to go into the mid lane. They didn't necessarily expect the Akali pick coming out in the draft phase, but still, he showed in that team fight that he knows how to get the couple of kills, got a great engage on the DNK, took Gragas out instantaneously. He didn't even get his ult off. Like, he was just deleted. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that. So far, it's been a really, really good series. Really, really good worlds in general. All the series have been pretty good. All the games been pretty exciting. I wouldn't say good, actually. Let's go with exciting. Because there's been a lot of like real head-scratching League of Legends play, but because both teams have been doing it, it's been fun. So let's get into like the actual breakdown of what we've seen so far at Worlds and kind of taking a look at what's been going on. So the first thing I want to kind of open up with is just like what we've seen in the meta. I have a graphic for you guys. Now you guys can find this on Gamepedia, LOL Gamepedia. Shout out to River and her team for doing such a fantastic job of updating things live. But if you go to the play-in section under the World Championships, you can actually find there's a tab called Champion Stats. And this will basically show you the pick ban rate of every single champion, as well as their win percentage, like all this sort of stuff. So I kind of want to walk you guys through this graphic a little bit and spend a little bit of time kind of breaking this down to show you guys what the teams have been prioritizing and how things have evolved. So let's take a look at that. Day one, Echo was really, really popular. He got picked in like every single game and lost every single game. Like Echo Jungle went from like the most highly prioritized pick to something that nobody's banning or playing at all. Everyone's just like, well, Echo Jungle sucks. Now, I'm not sure if he's that bad. I think, you know, a lot of the teams were, he's a kind of a new character in the jungle again. Like he was popular there a while ago, but that was a while ago now. So at this point, I think it's more that a lot of these junglers don't have any experience playing him. And because of that, they're making a lot of mistakes. They're not utilizing his routes. Like a lot of people are having a really hard time hitting his stun and comboing him correctly and getting away. It's great in solo queue, but I think at the highest level of play, like when you're at the World Championship, teams just know that kit too well, and they're too good at dodging it. They're too good at predicting certain things, and a lot of the junglers are having a really, really hard time piloting him effectively. So we didn't really... Echo went from, you know, everyone's darling to nobody wants to touch him with a 10-foot pole. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him come back for a couple games. People want to try him. Here's the graphic for you guys, but we haven't seen him much. So obviously at the top of the list, we have Pantheon. He's been picked or banned. Actually, he's been banned every single game except one where he won the game quite convincingly, showing everybody why he's been so highly prioritized. Syndra also picked or banned nearly every single game. Done a really, really good job. She's also been very, very, very effective. You know, only 5-5 in terms of her win-loss. So she's gone half, you know, even essentially in the game she's been played in. But I think a lot of that has been poor piloting. The game she lost, it seemed like people were picking her just to pick her because she was up, and that their team didn't really have much experience using her. And, you know, any champion in League of Legends, if you don't have the necessary or the required experience piloting them, you're going to have a bad time. But she is flexible, being played mid and bot in this tournament. Xayah been incredibly popular, and, you know, she's been winning a lot, slightly over 500%, but she's a really, really good AD carry, definitely the top tier one. Renekton, another champion, kind of like Echo, that a lot of people were prioritizing heavily in the first day, and he lost nearly every game. He's done a little bit better since, because I think people are not just blind picking him, first picking him into really dumb things. But now it seems to be working out a little bit better. And the supports, like we said, you know, the tanky supports still king. You got the Thresh, you got Nautilus. We've actually seen Gragas played in the bot lane once or twice as well, not very effectively. Rakan, obviously. The junglers, you've seen a lot of Gragas, seen a lot of Elise and Lee Sin, as well as Rek'Sai. Rek'Sai was just a couple of picks, though. Shrimp really, really likes Rek'Sai, so I think he played him like almost every single game that he could. But essentially, a lot of this stuff was fairly predictable. The one thing that we haven't seen much of, which I thought we were going to see more of, was the Orianna. We haven't seen a lot of Ori come out just yet. I'm definitely surprised by that, but I think she will. You know, she has been picked a couple games, and she did pretty well in the game she was picked in, so I think that is a pick we will see a little bit more of. Ryze looking really, really good. Skarner in the jungle still looking really, really good. Gnar is a top laner. So essentially, the meta hasn't changed too much. Still a lot of Gangplank. LeBlanc has kind of seen a lot of play. She has been buffed a couple times, and she's another champion that a lot of the mid laners, because she's so much fun to play in solo queue, almost every mid laner has a pretty solid amount of experience with her and knows how to pilot that champion. And with those couple of extra little buffs, she's been used quite effectively. We've seen a lot of like 80 carries like Lucian and Ezreal, even like Huni played Ezreal up top in a game today. Tristana taking up solo lanes, which has been interesting, especially with some of the mages. Heimerdinger, interestingly enough, 4 games played, 4 wins. Pretty crazy. He's been played Heimer bot every single time, and I don't think he's been that good, but he has been. It's just worked. I wouldn't necessarily say that the champion's that strong. I think just that his team has done very well in the games where he's been in there, and it's kind of carried him through. Like, I haven't been overly impressed with anyone's Heimer. I was really looking forward to seeing the Heimer mid from Detonation Focus Me, but teams did their research, they did their homework, and they banned Heimerdinger against them every single time. But yeah, I think overall, a lot of the champions we've seen are exactly what we expected. A lot of the champions that I brought up last week, I mean, Vladimir basically just getting carried by Naguri, as we saw earlier. He's getting picked a lot. So nothing too shocking. I think the meta is in a pretty stable place, and I would expect to see a lot of the same priority in the actual main event of the tournament. Obviously, every team is going to have one or two champions that they prioritize. Maybe that the rest of the meta doesn't prioritize just due to one of their players' proficiency. But overall, I think a lot of the champions have stayed the same from a couple of patches ago when competitive was still, being played on a consistent basis. And so a lot of the champs, most of the people in that respective role have the proficiency on, and they're playing more or less the same that we expected. All right, so now that we kind of have a grasp and an idea of what the meta is, let's take a quick look at the groups and how they shook out. So Group 1, we had Clutch, Unicorns of Love, and Mammoth. That was a shit show. There's no other way to say it. I mean, Clutch lost to Unicorns both times, beat Mammoth both times, and Unicorns lost to Mammoth both times, so it caused a tiebreaker. And then both teams that had beat the team they couldn't beat. So Mammoth actually lost to Unicorns in the first game of that tiebreaker, which eliminated them, and then Clutch was able to beat Unicorns to take the first seed. Splice went 3-1 in Group B, but they lost to Detonation Focus Me, which is really worrying because that team was not good. I think maybe Splice just came in with a little bit of confidence or arrogance to that specific matchup, but they should not have dropped a game in that group. Isurus took the second seed, but they're probably going to get knocked out tomorrow. I mean, Isurus wasn't incredibly impressive. Group C, Hong Kong Attitude, Low Key, and Mega. This group was also kind of a shit show. Hong Kong Attitude did come out on top, but a lot of the games were just really ugly. Mega wasn't able to pull it together. Low-key got the second seed, but they did get eliminated today against Damwon, which we'll get into here in a little bit. And then Group 4, Damwon, Royal Youth, and Flamingo. This was kind of really sad. I think we might have seen the last of BRTT. He did mention during one of his interviews at Worlds that he was very likely, he was debating on even playing this season. He wanted to get one more shot to get to Worlds. The one game he got to play is Draven. He went hard and showed everybody why you banned Draven against him. But after that, nobody let Draven get through again, and he lost every other game. It was unfortunate because obviously he wasn't going to be able to beat Damwon. They were actually doing really, really well early one game against them and just fell apart completely. They took a couple of fights that were a little bit too aggressive. They didn't calculate things sufficiently. So Royal Youth got to play today. We saw them play against Clutch, and they are also out. So, I mean, overall, like I said, kind of at the start of the show, the games were really entertaining. Like, it was really, really fun to watch a lot of these games, but I don't really know how to say it other than just head scratching. Like, at times, just awful League of Legends. Like, just really weird things happening. Really poor decisions being made in multiple places. A lot of players taking dumb deaths, very predictable deaths, a lot of greed. Now, obviously, once you get to the World Championship, there are a lot of nerves going on. People are nervous, especially, in this play-in stage where you literally have a couple games to determine whether you get to make it into the actual tournament, and your whole season rides on these couple of games. But I was hoping for more from a lot of the teams. I think Splice needed to look a little bit cleaner. The fact that they didn't kind of has me a little bit worried. Clutch scared me significantly, to put it lightly, in the first group. They did manage to pull it out. I am happy to say that the 4 teams I said on this show last week were going to come first in their group did come first in their group, so at least nobody botched it that badly. But a lot of teams took losses that they shouldn't have taken. The only team that made it through the actual group phase undefeated was Damwon, and then they took a loss today. To be fair to them, lane swapping isn't a thing we really see anymore. Ever since Riot instigated implemented the plate system on the first turrets, giving them that extra fortification, it's really, really hard to push down that first turret in time to get your bot lane back to bottom side to take the first dragon that comes up at 5 minutes. and the Rift Herald doesn't come online until 10 minutes. So because of that, it really, really hurts you to put your bot lane up top. So a lot of teams just don't do it. But Loki did today, and they were able to find success, especially against a non-AD carry from Damwon running that Garen Yuumi lane. So it was a perfect, storm, you could say, for Loki to pull that out, and they still almost lost the game. So the fact that Damwon was able to kind of claw that back, I just felt that their composition didn't really allow them to take advantage of the small leads they would get. Like I said earlier, they had to kind of completely demolish the other team with that composition to be able to take turrets, and they were not able to really do that on the low-key side of the map. The one fight that we broke down earlier, where they did get the ace, that was very heavily on their side. They barely lived. They had to go back, heal, and they weren't able to push or get really any major advantage off of it. But Damwon did look good, but I think we did kind of see the potential avenue to beat them. You just really have to hammer on that bottom lane. Clutch, their 10-minute Rift Herald, which worked so well in NA, even though everybody knew they were gonna do it, really started to show problems, you could say, during this group stage. Like, it's so predictable. And I mean, it's good knowing that you're going to fight for an objective, sure. And it's good knowing that a team's going to contest this thing. But when the other team can 100% predict what's going to happen at the 10-minute mark with 100% accuracy every single game, it really kind of puts you into this weird spot where the other team knows it's coming. And quite frankly, Clutch just isn't that great of a team that they can say, we know that we're going to do this and we don't care. We're just going to beat you at it anyway. And a couple times it really, really cost them. They lost team fights there. They got outplayed. They kind of got baited into doing what they wanted to do. They're like, oh, look, we're just going to be able to take this. And then the other team would be like, nope, we knew you were going to try that. And they'd kind of set a trap for them. So I think Clutch has definitely a little bit of, getting used to the fact that they're outside of North America now. They're playing some of the best teams in the world, especially now that they're in the main event. I would highly, highly consider for them maybe switching that up a little bit. And I know once you get to the World Championships, you don't necessarily want to completely change your playstyle, but to be that predictable against some of the best teams in the world is going to be a drawback to them. It's going to make it too easy for the other team to predict exactly what's going to happen and either take a massive advantage somewhere else or set that trap at the Rift Herald to really kind of blow the game wide open. And that's what happened to them against the Unicorns of Love the first couple of times. So with all that being said, that was kind of how the group shook out. But then already today, like, the world isn't giving us a break. We had a couple days off, and immediately we got into the series, the first play-in elimination series. So the first one, Damwon versus Loki, was an interesting series. I mean, Loki took that first game, the one that we broke down earlier and that I've talked about a couple of times now. And honestly, after that game, even though they won, it was weird. Because they won the game, and I think everybody watching in the back of their mind was like, well, this is going to be a 4-1, because you knew that wasn't going to happen again. You knew you're not going to lane swap, and, Damwon actually, even though a second game, they took the Yasuo Gragas bot lane, and they went without the AD carry. So they actually played with no typical, AD carry bot lane with a melee champion in the bot lane instead twice. But the second time, Loki didn't try it. They didn't try the lane swap. And the fact that they managed to get such a gigantic advantage in the first game, they got that Tristana so far ahead, and it took them 45 minutes to close that game out. That's just a recipe for disaster. I mean, that just tells you, like, this team is not going to be able to consistently make the small decisions and movements around the map to close this game out timely, even with a big lead. And with the way that Damwon likes to play with scaling champions, there's not going to be a whole lot that you can do against that, because they're eventually going to catch up to you and they're going to destroy you. The second game where they played, the melee bot lane, they actually put Naguri on Jace, which is, you can kind of use him as a surrogate ADC. Like, at least he has ranged melee damage and quite a bit of it, so he can kind of push down those towers. And I think that was probably why they didn't necessarily want to lane swap either, because Jace is really, really good into the 2v1 because of how safely he can just farm under turret. So that series very, very quickly, looked like it was just going to be over. There wasn't a whole lot that they could do. I mean, I could go through it game by game, but ultimately I just think that it was very one-sided. Even though, like, Damwon has this weird thing where, Naguri will die a couple times early for no reason, apparently. But he plays so greedy. Like, he uses the Kleptomancy, he gets the gold items, he uses culling. And because of this, he just he doesn't necessarily care. Like he'll outfarm his opponent, even in a bad matchup, have these gold items, and even if he dies, he's still like 500 gold ahead. So it's a really, really weird playstyle where the game can seem close, but ultimately they're going to end up pulling away. Showmaker played really, really well this whole series, honestly. I'm trying to think. The bot lane, Nuclear, not very good, but managed to have a really, really good game on Xayah in game 4, actually. Played it phenomenal. And that kind of sealed the deal there. If Nuclear's going off, it's over. Like if he's not feeding, the game is over. You're gonna lose. So that's definitely something for teams. Whoever tomorrow afternoon will know what group for the World Championship these teams get actually placed into. So next week we'll have a lot more information, and I think group stages start pretty much immediately too. I think they actually begin next week, so that should be a whole lot of fun to get into. Second series, Clutch versus Royal. Oh man. Clutch. The first two games were kind of close, I guess. But Clutch was just always able to pull it out. DeMonte looked really, really good today, actually. I thought he played a lot better. The one thing that I thought was really, really weird was that Royal didn't do what every single other team did against Clutch throughout the play-in stage, which was ban Rumble. Huni on Rumble is a god. And if you don't ban Rumble, you're going to have a bad time. And that's exactly what he was able to do. Like in the games 1 and 2, he just went so hard. He's so good with the equalizer. Always hits multiple targets. Always kind of zones off the right people in the team fight. So he'll use it to do a bunch of damage in a team fight, but also kind of create this line that the damage dealers cannot cross. Because if they're going to walk into that, they're going to die. Like Equalizer does an insane amount of damage. So he's so good at using it to zone. I think we will see a little bit more Rumble as we progress through the tournament. Once we get to some better top laners. Armut played pretty good against him, but ultimately, like Huni's Rumble is just too strong. So in game 3, they finally decide to ban the Rumble. And Huni goes on Ezreal. Not necessarily the greatest ADC player, so it kind of looked like, okay, there's a chance here. But then in game 3, bot lane just straight up feeds. Like Cody Sun was able to get multiple kills in just a 2v2 with Vulcan. Like they were just able to kill the other lane with no jungle help, nothing. And I think they got 2, maybe 3 of those kills, which is completely unacceptable at the highest level of play. Like you cannot die in a straight up 2v2 or in a straight up 1v1. And then mid lane, every single like mid jungle fight, DeMonte came out on top of. And then when you add all that together, it's just a gigantic lead for Clutch. Now the thing that kind of worried me though is that despite Clutch just steamrolling every lane in the third game, it took a long time for that game to end. And that they had to get 2 different Barons. They kind of had to go inhibitor by inhibitor. They couldn't find the fight that would end the game decisively until the very, very end. And, there's 2 ways to look at that. One is, Clutch was playing methodically. They were playing safely. They didn't want to give any chance for the other team to come back into the game. Fair enough, But I think with how hard you kind of stomped the first 15 minutes of that third game, you needed to put Royal out much quicker. You needed to just demolish them, end that game in 20 minutes, 25 minutes. I mean, from Damwon in that game 4, we saw them end that game in 22 minutes. They were just clearly they were cheesed. They lost that first game. Games 2 and 3 they won, but they weren't quite as decisive, and they looked kind of upset. And then game 4 they just absolutely smashed them. That's what I wanted to see Clutch do in game 3 to kind of make myself feel a little bit better about their hopes and about their chances moving into the actual group stage itself. Turkey, they're definitely a region that's rising. Like I was impressed overall with, some of their players and how good they were, but ultimately that wasn't a team that should be giving you that much trouble. And, Clutch really, it took them a long time to close that game out. So, I don't know. I think that, Rumble's going to get banned against them almost every single game, if not every single game in the group stage of Worlds. So what they're going to be able to do, if they don't have that Rumble, how they're going to be able to close things out, it's going to be tough to say. They're going to need big games from DeMonte. They're going to need big games from Cody Sun, which he's definitely capable. They're both definitely capable of providing, but they're going to have to step it up another level if Clutch wants any chance at winning, in the actual group stage of the World Championship. So let's take a look at the last 2 series. So Hong Kong Attitude versus Isurus. So this is the one that's starting tomorrow, 7 a.m. 3-1, maybe. Like this should be a 3-0. Like Hong Kong Attitude was another one of those teams that I had really high hopes for coming into this play-in stage that didn't impress me as much as I wanted them to during the group portion of it. They looked a little bit shaky. There was, definitely a lot of their play definitely wasn't clean, and I think we need to see them play really, really methodically tomorrow. Isurus, good team from South America, but definitely not. Shouldn't be on the same level. This should be a quick 3-0. 3-1 will have me a little bit worried depending on what happens in the one game that they lose and how that kind of gets taken from them. The damn one lost today, like I keep saying, just didn't bother me that much because nobody lane swaps. It was such a weird game, and they still almost managed to pull it back. I think they just put themselves into a hole that you can kind of forgive it. But if you just lose straight up tomorrow to Isurus, that's going to be a problem for HKA. So I'm hoping they'll be able to 3-0 that. I think they should be able to 3-0 3-1, but in my mind, Hong Kong Attitude has that series no problem. They're going to be advancing. And the fourth series is actually interesting. Splice versus Unicorns of Love. Now, Unicorns should lose this series. I mean, but it's all going to come down to Edward, honestly. And, if you guys have been League of Legends fans for a long time, you'll know that Edward was on that Gambit roster that was so infamous. One of the best supports in Europe for a long, long time. A little bit out of his heyday, but he still has that potential to be completely game-changing. We saw it a couple times in the play-in. The thing with Edward now is he's very hit or miss. It's almost like he'll either win you the game or potentially lose you the game. Like, he definitely got caught out a couple times, was randomly in a terrible position by himself. Like, even on Morgana, he'd go to, ward the river by himself when they had no vision. And there was a very good chance that, there's players there waiting for you. You haven't seen anybody for 3 minutes. The Baron is the next objective or 30 seconds, not 3 minutes. You never go 3 minutes without seeing somebody in League of Legends. But you get my point. You'd not see the other team for a really, really long time. And Edward would be like, maybe Baron is something that we should worry about. I'm going to go ward it, and just kind of walk over and just get killed. And it was bad. But he also made some incredible plays, really good with the bindings, really good hooks on Thresh. Used to be called the Thresh Prince. Do not give this guy Thresh. So for me, that's if they're going to beat Splice, that's who has to kind of break things open. Now, they did beat Clutch both times in the groups, as I mentioned earlier. So, Unicorn's definitely not a pushover team. But I, again, am confident that Splice should come out of this. Now, this one's, I will allow more leniency. I'm going to give a little bit more leniency here to Splice. They can 3-1 this, and I won't be too worried. This goes to game 5, though. Yikes. But ultimately, I think it'll be a 3-0, 3-1. Unicorns, good team, but I don't think they have quite what it takes to beat a team like Splice, especially if Splice is on their game. I am going to kind of write off their loss as a, overconfidence, looking past DNF, and hopefully they can kind of pull this one out without too much trouble. I know all of Europe will be holding their breath. So that series is slotted for around noon Eastern tomorrow. They are giving the full 5 hours, but with the second series, it will start when the first series ends. So it could start as early as around 10, 11, potentially, between the time, changing the teams off stage and the analyst desk and everything. But I would suggest that series is going to start before 12 because I do not expect the first series to go the full 5 games. But I'm still holding confident in my predictions. I got a couple of heart attack moments, but I think that those 4 teams will be the teams that we see in the actual group stage of the League of Legends World Championship itself. I don't think, while I was impressed with some of the performances of some of these other teams, they did not impress me enough to think that they're going to be able to take the victories in these series, and that's ultimately all that matters. Only one team's going to make it through. So there we have it. Those are the teams that I see making it in, and how I see those series shaking out. 3-0, 3-1. Hold me to it. Well, let's hope I don't look like an idiot next week. Okay. Time for some hot takes. So let's take a look at Reddit. Like we always do, we go to the community where the community lives, and the League of Legends subreddit, the greatest place on earth, right? League feels less popular than it is. So I have a theory behind this because I do think this is right. When you look at the numbers of people who play League of Legends, it is absolutely insane how many people play this game. The problem is that most of those people are not in North America. So
this guy's point is essentially that, when you see articles on the internet or marketing content or anything like that, it almost always is around games like Fortnite or PUBG or, Minecraft, or even, he mentions Rainbow Six. I think, COD or CSGO is perhaps a better example, but I get his point. And he says that, there's no weird League memes that come through. There's no like random marketing. You don't see League just like shouted out other places where you see some of these other games shouted out randomly. And his question essentially is, what's the deal with this? Like, this is one of the most popular games in the world. Why doesn't the community get any love outside of the community? And I have a couple of answers for him, because I think it's a fair question. I think that he's on it. Ultimately, I think he's correct. It doesn't feel as popular as it is. There's reasons for that, though. The first is that League in North America is nowhere near as popular as it is in Europe and in China and in Korea. And the thing is that, Reddit especially is a largely North American, and there's a lot of Europeans on Reddit too, but a largely North American phenomenon where, the fan base is going like, I don't see any shout outs to League in North American culture. And the other thing is that a lot of the marketing departments that run these companies, even like, almost all the international ones, are based in North America, where they're, like I said earlier, there's less League players in North America than there are in these other regions. So that could be a possible cause for it. The marketing people aren't as exposed to it. They're more used to console games or FPS games that have traditionally been more popular here in NA. Europe as well, they love their FPS titles, but they love League as well. But I think really what it comes down to ultimately, and so that was kind of like my possible answer one, but I think I'm putting more confidence in my second part of the answer, where it's the fact that League, for somebody who doesn't play League, is impossible to understand. Like, I think you guys have to, kind of step back. If you've been League fans for a long time, like I have, you kind of almost forget what a ridiculous learning curve it is to get into this game. There is an insane amount of champions. I forget what the number is. It's like 130 or something. It's stupid. It's stupid how many champions there are. They'll have 4 abilities. You need to know what all those abilities do. You need to have, I forget how many items, but a lot. You need to know what all the items do. And, there's a bunch of lore that goes with the game. And some of it you kind of get just through playing the game. So you kind of know, like, oh, like Garen and Darius don't like each other. Or, Thresh and Lucian, blah, blah, blah. There's something there. So you know a little bit of it. But if you're not playing this game on a somewhat regular basis, you have no idea what all these things are. I mean, if you don't play MOBAs, like maybe if you play Dota, you'll kind of be able to understand some League stuff. But even then, like I've tried to dabble into Dota, and it feels like such another world that I just get scared and I'm like, I'm just going to stick to League. And there's just such a ridiculous learning curve to get into it. And it's not intuitive in the same way that an FPS game is intuitive. So you don't need to know anything about CSGO. Turn on a CSGO stream right now. You'll watch somebody shooting somebody else. I'm pretty sure you can figure out when he's getting a killed, and based on when his screen goes black and when he dies, like, and what happens. He got shot by another gun. He missed his shot. Like, it's super obvious and simple in a way that a game like League of Legends isn't. And to be honest, that's why we love League of Legends in general, because it's a more complicated game. There's a lot more going on. There's a lot more to learn. There's a lot more nuance. There's a lot of stuff there to appreciate. But if you don't know the game, none of it makes any sense to you. So when you're talking, about a marketing department going to make a meme, or, a person going to make a meme, and when people do this, they want likes, they want retweets. Well, how do you get people who don't necessarily know much about what you're talking about the game to share it as well? And the reality is that they have to kind of understand it intuitively on some level. And for League, it's just almost impossible to get that to happen. Like, it's just such a complicated world that if you don't follow the game, no meme is going to make sense to you from League. No, like, graphic will make sense. None of it will resonate the same way like Fortnite. Even Fortnite, which is very cartoonish. There's a lot of building going on. People get confused by that. But at the end of the day, when a player kills another player, eliminates another player, it's with a gun. And it's very like, players right there. You shoot them, they fall. It says you killed them. Simple. In League, you have all these skills. It's just too complicated. So I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. Could be wrong, but that would be my guess. It just doesn't resonate with somebody who's not a League fan the same way that a Counter-Strike meme can resonate with a person who is not a Counter-Strike fan. Okay. Hot take number 2. Bring back Clash. So I'm sure some of you guys had a good time last time playing Clash. And I agree with this dude. Clash is the best experience I ever had in League of Legends. It's up there for me for sure. So in case you guys are not familiar with Clash, it is the 5v5 like tournament-esque mode. So you actually have to put together a team of people and play 5v5 League of Legends. And you have to keep that team for like, multiple games. Like you're playing with these people, right? And to be honest, with the fact that League is a team game, like when you watch, we don't watch pro solo queue like you do on stream, obviously, but tournaments are, 5v5 pre-made teams. They have premeditated strategies. The top laner will pick something, and then the bottom laner will pick something based on that, and the mid laner will pick based on that. And it's all kind of like you create these synergistic compositions. And it's very different experience than playing solo queue, where everyone's like, okay, I see you pick an AD mid laner, but I don't play any AP top, so I'm still just playing an AD top. And we're just gonna, and then the AD carry is like, well, I don't play Kai'Sa, so I'm just gonna play Caitlyn, and let's hope that we don't get past 30 minutes and they build armor because we're gonna lose. In Clash, you're a lot more likely, especially if you're playing with your actual friends, you can just find teammates for this too. But everybody's just trying to win and play like competitive League of Legends. And the great thing is that they have this at all levels. So they have it capped per elo. So even if you're 5 bronze players, you can play against 5 other bronze players. And, I don't know what goes on in bronze, but you guys can like try your best at competitive League of Legends. You guys can put together teams and work together and have a bit more fun. Also, just the fact that because you're kind of queuing with people, like you're way less likely to flame each other and have the whole thing devolve into just a shit show where somebody's like running down lane because they died once or twice and they're just like, well, I'm just feeding every lane now. So ultimately, I think it's a really, really good mode. And the fact that League has I've never really understood why they didn't have like a team mode. Now they have, flex queue where you can play with multiple people, but that is not the same as having a dedicated mode where it's like, this is your team, like a clan match or something. Like this is your team. You're going to play against other teams and you can rank your team up in elo, like the same way you would rank up in solo queue. And I think that is a mode that Clash has kind of answered with some of their one-off tournaments, but I would really, really like to see it be implemented into the game as an actual like full-time playlist. Like bring in full 5v5. You can only play it with 5 people. You have to have like an organization, a team, whatever you want to call it, or whatever League wants to call it. And then create that like experience where people can actually get the feel for like what being on a competitive team is like, because I think that's one of the bigger problems that League honestly has in terms of introducing people to the game at a competitive level. Like it's so difficult for people to get into professional play, because essentially they have to get all the way up to the top of solo queue, and then they have to like find some people that maybe want to compete in an amateur tournament, or they have to play at their school, or even worse, they're just a solo queue god that gets recruited onto one of these academy teams and it's like, well, let's see how you do. And they've never worked with a team before. They have no idea what that experience is like. And, team games in general, one of the best parts is being on a team. Like you become friends with your teammates, you work together, you learn all sorts of things that are transferable outside of esports too. Like, learning how to work with people is something you're probably going to have to do the rest of your life. So like learning how to do that and how to iron out disputes and come to agreements on things where people might have completely opposed points of view, relegating the ability for one person to make decisions in game. Like, okay, do you know what? You're going to be the shot caller and we're going to listen to what you say. And even if it goes horrible, then after the game, we'll address that and say, maybe we should have made a different call. You should have made a different call here. But in the game, we're going to follow what it is you say to do. So then that way we know whether the call was right or not, right? Little things like that honestly make it so much different than solo queue. Like it feels like a completely different game at that point. And I think it's definitely something that everybody should experience. I had a lot of fun being involved with, my university's team back in the day. I helped coach them for a little while. And, I used to play, full, like the 5v5 with my friends from school all the time. And I honestly, even though a lot of my friends were awful at video games and the games were sometimes really painful, I still had almost more fun doing that than I ever did in solo queue, because you're actually hanging out with your friends and playing this game and you're working together and you're trying to figure out how to make this work, right? So definitely, I completely agree. Clash needs to come back. It needs to be expanded. We need to have full team mode again. You have like a 5v5, maybe even make it a set team or organization. And like you personally don't have an elo. It's like your team of 5 guys has an elo. And as maybe you can make it 6 or 7, so you have like 1 or 2 subs, and you can maybe swap 1 or 2 people off the team. You can kind of get the team up, but it's the organization that holds the elo. And then, yeah, I mean, maybe that would introduce problems where people are, will sell the last 2 spots or something, but maybe you have to play a certain number of games to get the actual rank for it. I don't know. Riot, you can figure that out. I'm sure. I have faith in you. You guys are smart. But definitely, it's a great mode. We need that back. Okay, TFT. Got a couple minutes left here, so I want to run you guys through what's been going on and kind of take a quick look at the changes that are coming up. So Imperials seem to be pretty strong. Knights really, really strong, and you can kind of get a good census here on what's good and what's bad based on the graphic. This is tentative, guys. It's not locked in stone, but honestly, I would say 95+% of the stuff that we've seen on these tentative changes graphics have gone through. So nerfs, Frozen Heart, yes. Infinity Edge, I mean, it's a good item, but like it was buffed recently. I don't really think it's in a terrible spot. I would have liked to see the Gauntlet get nerfed over Frozen Heart too, but anyway. Thief's Glove, absolutely. This item is broken. Like the fact that you can get 1 completed item and it gives you 3 completed items every single turn. Now, yes, there's RNG involved, but to put that on like a secondary carry gives you phenomenal value. It's one of the best items in the game, so that definitely needs a nerf for sure. Assassins, still pretty strong. Not as strong as they were a couple patches ago, but I think they're still very oppressive, and the problem is they're just not fun to play against. I don't know what they can do about that. They kind of put the synergy in the game. It is what it is. You just have to kind of position accordingly for assassins and deal with it. I don't know. It's weird. But I think a lot of people don't like playing against them because I don't necessarily feel like assassins are overpowered right now. They're good, but they're not overpowered. Knights are almost in every single major comp. So yes, these guys need a nerf. They're really, really good early, and they're really, really good late. Like there's no point where you need to swap knights out. It's always a good synergy. So wild, this is to be expected. They were constantly buffing the wild buff as well as the wild units, slowly but surely, every single patch. And eventually, I think Scara said this at one point, that they were going to reach a breaking point where they realized like, oh, everybody's playing this now, and it's ridiculous. And now the fact that they can't miss attacks with their new passive to kind of counter Yordles, they're just really, really oppressive. So yeah, this is a necessary change. Poppy, really, really, really strong unit. Probably not Kennon's the best, but one of the best 3-star units in the game. Probably number 2 behind Kennon. Aatrox used to kind of hold that position. They nerfed him. They brought him down. So now Poppy, a little bit less ridiculous, hopefully, because she is an integral part of a lot of comps, Yordles, Knights, all these different things that are seeing a lot of play right now. So that's good. Akali, kind of weird. I don't see too many Akalis. I mean, people are running the ninjas a little bit, like 4 ninja assassin, and Akali can kind of fit into ninjas, into assassins, into that ninja assassin comp. But I still feel like she's one of the more underwhelming 4-cost units. So I'm surprised to see this nerf. Deathblade and Quicksilver getting buffs, interesting. I thought both of these units were okay. Deathblade actually probably could use the buff. Quicksilver I thought was fine. So I'm assuming what they're going to do on this is reduce the cooldown. So instead of every 5 seconds, maybe like every 3 seconds or something. Maybe that'll get you 1 more proc of the QS off, which is probably worth it. Guardian and Gunslingers. I'm excited for this because I loved playing the Unkillable Braum and Guardian comps in general. I was a big fan of, and I think that depending on what the numbers are and the nerf to Knights and the buff to Guardians, that this might become the front line for a lot of comps. Gunslingers have just been terrible for a little while now, so this is definitely a much needed buff. Fiora, terrible unit after like round 2, round 3. Like by middle of round 3, Fiora is garbage. So a buff is probably good for her because of the Noble and the Blade Master synergy, especially with Noble kind of being not very good right now, helping her out a little bit, as well as Lucian. Lucian, I'm scared to see what they're going to do to him because he was definitely the best 2-cost unit in the game for a long time. So we'll see what happens there. Aatrox and Gangplank. So yeah. Okay, I'm just going to say this looking at the buffs. I'm getting a little bit worried that they're doing the same thing with Gunslingers that they just did with Wild. Like, when you buff the synergy and the individual units like Lucian and Gangplank that fit into every Gunslinger comp, like, that is scary. Because you don't know how much better it's going to be. So, obviously, we have to take a look at what the numbers are, what the changes are, what is actually buffed. But very potentially, Gunslingers are going to be a comp to run next week. Aatrox, also, they gutted him really hard, maybe trying to give him a little bit of love back so he feels a little bit better to play. But you see with Fiora as well, being buffed. Blade Masters have gotten a buff with 2 of their units. Nobles have gotten a buff with Fiora and Lucian, and then Gunslingers with Lucian and Gangplank. So all those are things to look out for. Volibear is in a weird place. They keep like buffing, nerfing him. Like they buff him, and then he becomes carry Volibear, and they nerf him, and he becomes useless. And then Kai'Sa, Really, really good unit if you can get a 2-star Kai'Sa. The problem is that getting a 2-star of any 5 cost is almost impossible. So, and at 1 star, or yeah, 1 star, she just feels not good. So, anyway, there you have it. If you want to get some more wins this week, run Knights, run Draven, run Imperial, get yourself some dubs, and hope you guys enjoy the rest of Worlds that are going to be going on this week. Remember, tomorrow, bright and early, are the new matches, but don't worry if you don't watch them. LOL Esports actually does the best job of any sport. I want to give those guys a shout out right now. They put the VODs up within like a couple of hours, an hour sometimes of the game being done. Those guys are phenomenal. So even if you have work or you have to, maybe you want to sleep in and be a normal human being, you can still watch the games. Make sure you guys watch those. They're going to be great series. And hopefully we see Splice and Hong Kong Attitude joining Damwon and Clutch in the actual group stage later this week. Anyway, guys, that does it for this week. And we'll see you next time. Take care.